The SS Silver Laurel is one of my favourite local wrecks. There's loads of reasons I like it, and I'll cover those in more detail through the video. But I'd be lying if I didn't mention that at least one of those reasons is because I'm the proud owner of the ship's bell. I found it on the bow a number of years ago, and here, if you look closely, you might just be able to make it out. This is where it is now, hanging outside the back of my house. And I use it when I'm cooking on the barbecue to summon everybody that it's time to come and eat. One of the other interesting things about the Silver Laurel is actually its cargo. It was carrying trees, as you can see in this image. And these aren't little things either. They're maybe 30 to 40 feet long and 2 to 3 feet in diameter. When they first found the Silver Laurel, they thought it was carrying teak. So they sent down a team to have a look at it. But unfortunately, as you can see, large chunks of the wood has been eaten away by various marine organisms, and it's not valuable. So hence it's still on the wreck and wasn't salvaged. Now, I live in Plymouth on the southwest coast of the United Kingdom, and the Silver Laurel is about 20 odd miles away. So it's a really good distance for a nice, fairly easy dive day, which is one of the reasons why the Silver Laurel has been dived quite a lot. There's loads to see, or at least I think so. Clearly this is the bronze prop at the stern. Normally you'd expect this to have been salvaged at this kind of depth, so don't know why it hasn't been, but obviously great for us. And here's the gun at the stern. Once again, lovely thing to see. The ship was defensively armed, never fired in anger I don't think, and there it is lying on the seabed. Something else that's quite good about the Silver Laurel is that the depth at sort of 65, 66 metres is pretty good. So you get quite a lot of bottom time for a 2.5 hour run time. And this is my decompression profile from today's dive. So you can see, I left bottom after 45 minutes. By technical diving standards, that's quite a good dive. For those of you who may be not familiar with these diagrams, the white line is the depth. I am at a particular point in the dive, so time is the axis along the bottom, and the stuff shown in red, that's my decompression ceiling. If I go above that, then I run the risk of DCI. So you wait till your dive computer tells you that you're clear, and then you move up. And as you can see, you spend more and more time at shallower and shallower depths. So the majority of the dive is actually spent, somewhere between 3 to 6 metres. If you watched my other videos, you'll won't recognise this boat. I don't think I've posted one diving off Red Alert before. This is one of the local Plymouth skippers. It's a guy called Danny, another top skipper, someone I've known for a very long time, and he's great for this kind of thing. One of the really nice things about his boat is that it's got side exits, and as you can see here, I'm just about to get up and then go off over the side. Makes it really easy getting in and out of the water. Lots of other boats you have to go over the back, out via the lift and things, which is fine. All boats have got pros and cons, but this is quite nice. The only thing is the gate's just a little bit smaller than perhaps you'd like it to be, so there is always the risk of getting something hooked as you go over the edge, and therefore either gets ripped off or there's a potential to be left dangling. So you've just got to be careful. Now here's Danny. Obviously, he's bringing us up to the shot line, which he's got in there, and I'm going to be in first with my buddy JP. JP, I think, is getting out the other side, so we'll both get in the water at the same time, and we'll get on a shot line, and then we'll descend together. This is another dive where I'm using my head-mounted Paralenz, so I'm not using my scooter again today. There you go. I'm just making sure that it's all lined up and is not looking too much down or whatever. Hence the big yellow glove. There you go. There's Red Alert with the other divers on, and it's all looking pretty good. There's JP off to my right. He's swimming for the shot line. We both know the importance of getting on it, so that we don't drift off if there's any current. And there we are. He's on the shot line. We're about to start our descent. Yeah, just a quick exchange. We're both happy. We're both going to go down. I think the boat's seen us as well, so off we go. For those who don't dive rebreathers, getting down or getting started is always a bit more challenging with rebreathers than it is with normal scuba gear. It's because there's quite a lot of gas still in various different parts of your gear. So typically we've got 3 buoyancy spaces to worry about. There's the counter lungs for the rebreather, which is where you breathe out. There's your dry suit, and there's your the wing, which you use for buoyancy on the surface mainly. What that means is you often see rebreather divers just using the shot line just to get themselves going, just a little pull to kind of start you on the descent. But here we are, we're off down. There's JP. He's same as me. He's diving an AP Inspiration rebreather. His is in the standard box that you get it in. Mine, I use something called a G box for mine, which is an aftermarket thing that you can buy. I prefer it because I think it holds all the cylinders better and is kind of makes things easier on the surface really. What we're going to do now is a quick bubble check. So he's going to have a look at my gear. I'm going to have a look at his gear, and we're just looking for any obvious signs of gas coming out. You can see there's no bubbles coming out of his gear, which is a really good sign. And he's going to do the same with me. So he's having a quick look at me, and yeah, there we go. I'm all good. So we can kind of crack on with the dive. This part of the sea, actually, there is relatively little tide, relatively little water movement, and we're probably diving it on a neap tide anyway. So as you can see there, the shot line is absolutely vertical. So that once again, it's a good indication that there's no current running. And you can see we're just kind of descending our way down there. Now the wreck is about 60 odd meters, so we've got a bit of a way to go. So the Silver Laurel was sunk in very late 1944, so really towards the end of the Second World War. By this point, the air was full of anti-submarine planes, and the sea was full of destroyers and stuff aiming to sink German submarines, so their lifespan was incredibly short. The submarine that torpedoed the Silver Laurel was the U-486, kind of fairly standard Type 7 German submarine, which was kind of the bulk of their submarine fleet. It was slightly interesting. It had a snorkel fitted, which was their attempt to give the submarines greater protection by meaning that they didn't need to surface to charge their batteries. It also had acoustic tiles on, which were designed to reduce the risk of them being detected by ASDIC, which was a kind of sonar system. So the U-486 was actually quite well equipped by the standards of the day. Didn't save it. It managed 2 war patrols and then was sunk off Norway in early 1945. So now I've actually got something going on here, as you can see there. I'm pointing at my handset, telling JP that I've got a problem. You probably saw a bit of red on my handset there. So JP's coming over to have a look. I think what I'm getting here is a CO2 alarm, which carbon dioxide is in your rebreather loop is really bad. It leads something called hypercapnia, which means that you breathe excessively. So I've shown it to JP, and what sometimes happens is sometimes with the CO2 sensor you get it will detect CO2, which may be because of the way you've done the pre-breathe on the surface, or it may be you're going down a bit quick and it builds up really quickly. Anyway, what I've done, I think in this case, is probably a diluent flush to get rid of gas from inside my rebreather loop, and the CO2 alarm has gone away, which is good news, because clearly you don't want to be diving with the risk of CO2, so or with too much CO2 in your loop. So we're carrying on going down now, and you can see the watercolour starting to change. It was quite light near the surface. As we get down, it's getting darker, and also I think perhaps a little bit murkier as well. So I've obviously got my torch on now, mounted in my left hand, and we're just really waiting for the wreck to kind of come into view at this point. Now, one of the problems with this video is going to be that I've got my the only source of light really is that torch in my left hand. It's really bright, and that means when I shine it on things, it's going to burn out the centre of wherever I shine it on, and that doesn't make for great video footage. So apologies in advance for that. It's just a limitation. I'm not really diving to take videos. I'm diving with a video camera, if that makes sense. Most of these videos that I post, I never expected to be going up on YouTube. It was just a, I posted a couple and people seem to like them, so I'm going back through my archives and pulling out videos that I think might be quite interesting, even though they're not necessarily great quality. So that's what I'm doing here today. Me and John have stopped again. I think maybe I've got another CO2 alarm, so I'm probably just running through, giving it time to kind of calm down, and maybe going to do another dill flush in a minute. And looks as though the wreck is starting to come into view. I did get a brief glimpse of it a moment ago, I think. Yep, there it is. You can see JP's shining his torch on it. So any moment now, we're going to get our strobes out and going to attach our strobes to the shot line, which is the next thing we do in the sequence. But there you go. Without my torch, you can see just exactly how dark it is. I'm looking up there briefly, and you can see that there's light above me. So there is light getting down here, but it is still really dark. Now the Silver Laurel, I think I mentioned already, is a really big wreck. It's 5,000 tons. So had a crew, I think, of about 68. All of them got off, no casualties, which is clearly great news. But because it's such a big wreck, it does mean there's loads to see, but it's also quite heavily degraded as well, which means navigating around it can be quite challenging. Now we're lucky today. Danny, the skipper's put the shot line right in the middle of the wreck. We're going to get our strobes on, and obviously, as you can see there, the vis is actually pretty good. So that's going to help us get back. But it is a big wreck, and it is easy to get lost on the Silver Laurel, just because many of the obvious features are not kind of as obvious as you would like. But there I am on the wreck. Once again, you can see just how still the water is. That rope is really flat. Bit of an OK signal there between me and JP. Just, we're all at the bottom of the wreck. We're all sorted. Whatever the issues with my rebreather are all sorted out now, and off we go. Now, there you go. That is an engine cover. So that would have had sort of skylights in it, be on top of the engine, and would have provided light down into the kind of engine machinery spaces. This was World War II, so they would have had electric lighting, but they still, obviously if you can get daylight in, that's always better than light bulbs and stuff. And off we go. There you go. That's the shot line, the blue rope. You can see it's just laid on the seabed on top of that massive net. And like this area is really heavily fished, and like all the wrecks in this area, it's just covered in old fishing line. Some people get a bit concerned about it and go, "Isn't it awful? It's covered in fishing line." Well, yeah, I guess, but this has just become part of the wreck now. You can see that it's kind of marine life is growing on various different ropes and stuff. And there you go. I'm just using my torch to have a look inside things. I think, and there you go. There's JP over there. You can see the strobes as well flashing away in the distance. And this is somewhere in and around the engine. Oh, you can see there I've spotted a porthole down in that hole there. I'm probably going to let JP know. Oh, he's found something as well. Looks like a bit of wood. I don't know, a box presumably that would have had something in it. I think he's probably looking to see if there's anything interesting written on it. Clearly there isn't. He's left it. There you go. I'm just telling him there's a porthole in there. I don't think anybody's going to be going in there to get it. But it's always nice to see these things. And off I go. It's that's kind of interesting, that bit of metal off to my left hand side there. I think the fact that you can see the rust, that you normally get stuff, the concretions come off it. That normally indicates that it's either bent or something's broken off. So it's part of the process by which the wreck is degrading. I think you end up seeing things like that. And this, once again, you can see there's all sorts of cables and pipes and tubes. This is this is, you know, in the middle of the ship. At some point we're going to go up onto the bridge, I think. We're going to see the engine on this dive, so there's quite a bit to see. But in fact, that might no, that's not the engine, I don't think. Oh yeah, no, that is the engine. Apologies, and that's my signal to John to tell him the engine. That's the engine. Lots of wrecks. Everything has fallen away from the engine, so they sort of stand up completely proud and away from everything. That isn't the case with the Silver Laurel, as you can see here. All the decking and the plating and everything have fallen in and around it. It was a steamship, so built in 1939, so just before the war, and therefore, you know, everything on it is decent quality. Ships built during the war tend to be poorer quality. And you know, you can see here, you know, there's a big I-beam that's bent over. I'd love to know what this thing is here. I've seen similar things on other wrecks, but that kind of circular thing with almost like a bucket underneath it, I don't know what it is, but you know, clearly that's a big significant bit of machinery. I think, you know, the thing with steamships is very few of them left in use anywhere in the world, but at one point they literally ruled the seas. Hundreds, thousands of them. I mean, there's thousands of steamship wrecks around the UK, but all these bits and pieces and all the knowledge that to keep them moving is gone. I don't know if you saw there, just on the right hand side, you probably saw the antenna off a crayfish or crawfish, depending on the way that you want to talk about them. Crawfish were massively, heavily fished in the kind of 70s and 80s, and basically nearly entirely wiped out. They're not fished, certainly on the south coast anymore, and they've made an incredible resurgence. So we see them often on our dives, and really big ones as well, which is really nice. Nice to see, you know, the marine environment recovering itself. This is, you know, once again, I'm swimming. This is in and around the engine space. It would have been a really important area of the ship, and you know what I'm doing is I'm looking out for things, you know, just seeing if there's any, you know, any artifacts. Although, you know, I think the Silver Laurel did have 2 bells. Clearly, I've got one of them, and I know the other one has been recovered. But to the best of my knowledge, you know, the maker's plate, for instance, hasn't. I don't know if anybody's ever found the steam whistle. There you go. There's a set of ladders. And you know, once again, you know, more machinery, more parts of the engine room. Probably just got a glimpse of JP off to my left hand side there. And once again, it'd be nice to know what all these things are actually for, but unfortunately I don't, so I can't tell you. I've already mentioned that the Silver Laurel was sunk without any casualties, which was obviously great, but really sadly, 6 days later, on Christmas Eve, the same submarine, the U-486, sank a Belgian ship called the SS Leopoldville, and the Leopoldville was a troop ship. It was carrying a large number of American servicemen, and over 800 of them lost their lives during that sinking on Christmas Eve. It was an appalling tragedy, not least because, you know, although I think about 300 died during the initial torpedo attack, 500 people died just because the rescue effort was a complete hash, really. It was Christmas Eve, so there was all sorts of problems. People were at parties in the nearby port of Cherbourg. There was problems with American ships communicating with British ships. There was a problem on board the Leopoldville. All the crew were Belgium, and they were largely speaking in Flemish, so the American soldiers didn't understand what they were being told to do. So it was just an utter disaster, and it's, you know, not particularly well known. There are memorials around a few places, but an incredibly sad story that so many, you know, young soldiers died essentially on their way to war. They weren't even at war, and then afterwards there was a big cover up, and people were told not to talk about it. And it's only in kind of recent years, I think, that the full details of the tragedy have come out, and there's a greater awareness of it. I think there was the National Geographic did a programme, and the wreck is in French waters near Cherbourg. You can't dive it. unless you get a license from the French authorities. I know a few people who have dived it. I've not done it, but supposedly the wreck is littered with American helmets, and you think each one of those helmets would have had a soldier inside it. And I think, you know, that kind of thing, you know, those kind of human artifacts really bring home the scale of a tragedy such as that. So that was a U-486, sunk the Silver Laurel on the 18th of December. 6 days later, Christmas Eve, 24th of December 1944, it sunk the SS Leopoldville with all those casualties. So an awful story. So as you can see, this wreck is really difficult to kind of make out what anything is, and it's because it is so big and it's kind of collapsed in on itself. There's very little in the way of obvious landmarks on the ship. So, you know, I'm literally, this is in and around the kind of the bridge area, the engine area. Obviously, I've just seen something there. That big round thing might be some sort of pressure vessel, maybe a boiler. That looks as though it could be a porthole. And I think I'm kind of down on the, you know, very close to the actual seabed here. Most of the wreck of the Silver Laurel stands about 4 or 5 meters up. But I'm swimming around having a look for things, because it's such a big wreck. If you try and cover it all, you don't really get the opportunity to spend any time on anything. So I've done the wreck, you know, probably 6 or 7 times. So on this dive, I've decided that the way ahead is just to spend some time in and around the kind of central area of it, and, you know, have a real look around and see if I can find anything. You know, there's the porthole. Yeah, to be honest, it's not a particularly great one. My days of collecting portholes are long past me, so I'll leave that down there for somebody else to see. They may come down in the future. You know, and it's always nice to see these kind of things, because so few wrecks have got them left on. Deep stuff, you know, the bigger, further out wrecks, you will still find portholes on, but shallow ones around the UK, almost nothing. And you probably just saw the strobe again there, so I'm not a million miles away from the shot line. I'm just taking it nice and steady and having a good look around. It takes a while to get your eyes in. Now, a friend of mine, actually, in pretty much the area where I am now, found a pair of binoculars a few years ago, which is a really nice thing. You know, you think they've been underwater for, you know, 80 years, I guess, and they're you know, they're nice quality and everything. And she's got them cleaned them up and everything, declared them to the receiver of wreck, obviously, and she's got them on display. So that's really nice. Much better in her living room than on the bottom of the sea, being buried by bits of plate. But yeah, I think this, whenever the torch isn't around, it gives you a good idea of what the actual visibility is like, what the conditions are like on the wreck. There's JP over there. He's doing the same as me, and we both talked about this before we went down. We said, look, we're not going to try and get to the bow. We're not going to try and get to the stern. We're just going to spend, you know, some time having a good look round, and that suits JP down to the ground. That is, you know, something he likes doing as well. So once again, I mean, see, there's all sorts of bits and pieces around here. There's pipes. There's some of the kind of engine room flooring. That's the kind of the metal rung things. You know, there's all sorts of bits and pieces around here. This would have been a, you know, really busy area of the wreck. I can see 2 more divers have joined us. The next pair of divers will have brought in the lazy shot. They'll have secured it all in. Our tags were on it before we went down. And once again, you know, you can see there's, you know, all sorts of bits and pieces here. Some sort of hose perhaps there. I have previously got bits of I found bits of the fire hoses. Yeah, I mean, that's what that looks like to me. That looks like a fire hose. So in and around there will probably be some nozzles and you know, brass couplings and all those kind of things. And that's probably what I'm having a look for. You can imagine there would have been like a cupboard, I guess, with all the fire hose in, and in there would have been all the bits that you need to put a fire hose together. but yeah, it's just a complete mess, isn't it? The wreck. You can see everything's just kind of fallen down and jumbled up on top of each other. That's why you've got to spend the time getting your eye in, looking underneath all the plates, looking in the mud, trying to spot things. So who's this? Oh yeah, that's Andy on the right. I think I'm just telling him where the bow is, and there you go. I'm telling him where the prop is, so they understand. I think some of the other divers might have wanted to go to those things, so they know where they are. And as I say, it can be quite a difficult wreck to navigate itself around. So because I've been in and around the engine, once you know where the engine is, you know where everything else is. So I've just told them. No, this is one of the really nice bits about this wreck. Another something else that you don't see. So just in front of me there, I think is a Telemotor helm. So most wrecks would have had at least one helm. Often though they had two, and that's the case with the Silver Laurel. So the helm is obviously how the steering is done, and normally they would have had a big wood or brass wheel on them. So the Telemotor helm is a hydraulic helm. In fact, there it is in front of me. So you can see just to the left the kind of circle bit with the holes in it. That would have had wooden spokes coming out of it to the wheel. And it's rare that you see these things, so that's why I'm getting out my my camera. I'm going to take some photos of it, and just to make sure that I've got a decent record. So yeah, this is a hydraulic helm, so it would have there'd be normal hydraulic stuff, and that's what would have driven the rudder at the back of the wreck. Above this, on a shaft, would have been another helm. And so effectively the Telemotor would have acted as almost like a repeater. So again, I'm just telling John that's what it is, just to make sure he hasn't missed it. I've got my video lights on, which you can see dramatically improve the quality of the video. And there you go, I'm going to get some photos. I'm trying to get John in the photos, I think, because it's always nice to have a diver for scale. And I'm just kind of positioning myself so that I can get the best position for a photo. So the hydraulic helm would have been right at the front of the bridge, so it's another good way of identifying exactly where we are. That helm obviously is really heavy. I mean, you can see it's a big bit of kit. It's also bolted to the floor, and it's got loads of bits of plate on it, so that hydraulic helm isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's kind of hydraulic helms, Telemotor helms are really a kind of more modern thing. So later ships, big liners and stuff, or really big ships would have had them first, because clearly it's very difficult to manually turn a rudder on a really big ship by hand. And then I think what happened is smaller ships started getting them as well. But the Silver Laurel is 5,000 tons. That's a big ship. That is a big rudder. So having some sort of mechanical or having assistance through mechanical means for the guy whose job it was to turn the ship is obviously useful. So clearly John knows we're in and around the bridge. There's always interesting things in and around the bridge. So John's having a look, and by the looks of things, he's probably got something there. I don't know what it is. A friend of mine's actually found the helm, not this one, the one that sits above it. He found that a few years ago, and that's in his garden. But the Silver Laurel has been dived a lot, and most of the stuff has gone from it. I think it was regularly dived in the 90s and the 2000s. It's really easily accessible, so there's not actually that much left on it. Another reason I like diving the Silver Laurel is that I feel that I've got a personal connection to it. So not only obviously having the bell, but the Silver Laurel was en route from West Africa to Hull when it was sunk. I think I've probably mentioned that already. As well as the cargo of trees, it was also carrying a load of cocoa beans. So, one of the principal ingredients in making chocolate. Oh, I'll tell you what, I think what you can see there is those two bits there are the part of the ship's binnacle. Just on the left-hand side, the ship's binnacle is the compass. So they would be a way of adjusting it using electrical signals. In fact, there's a tree off to the left. So I've just dropped forward of the bridge into the forward cargo hold. Yeah, and there you go. There's those two bits there are part of the binnacle. There is another bit of the binnacle off to the right hand side on the seabed, but that's back with the Telemotor helm there. And JP's obviously having a good look around to see what he can find. Yeah, so the Silver Laurel was carrying cocoa beans. So it was taking cocoa beans to Hull. And you might ask, well, why is it taking one of the principal components of chocolate to Hull? Well, I would imagine that was because Hull is the main port for the city of York. And the city of York is home, well, it was and is home to several chocolate manufacturers. Most famously, of course, Rowntree's, but also, it's now Cadbury Schweppes, but Rowntree's is the famous one there. Now, a lot of my family are from York, and lots of them worked in Rowntree's, both at this time and before and afterwards. So I would imagine, or I imagine that those cocoa beans were being taken to Hull so they could go to the Rowntree's factory in York, and therefore my family would have used them to make chocolate. The other thing, of course, that was happening at that time is there was lots of rationing, and I also think because the Silver Laurel got sunk, maybe a whole load of kids didn't get their Christmas chocolate because it went down. As I mentioned, I think the Silver Laurel sunk on the 18th of December, so just in the run up to Christmas. Probably really sad news for a load of kids. Some more divers there. One of them's found something. I don't know what it is, but you can see he's kicked up all the viz and left it down there. I think here I'm on this is the port side of the wreck, and once again I'm just having a look in and around here. It's just to the rear of the bridge. So you think, what is to the rear of a bridge on a ship? Well, obviously it's the engine spaces, but also living quarters often as well. So there may be accommodation, there may be the ship's galley and all those kind of things. So you can see there's bits of crockery. There's a broken something or other there. So I'm just taking the time to have a good look around. Oh, there's a conger. Don't want to but there's some crockery, and there's another one. Some crockery. I don't like putting my hand near congers. They've got big teeth, and they may get a little unhappy about somebody coming and invading their environment and messing around with it. So I just tend to give them a bit of a wide berth. There's other people who are a lot braver than me who hit them on the face and all those kind of things. But that's not my bag. You can see there the viz is rubbish where that other diver's been kicking around stuff. So yeah, not great, but the silt is relatively heavy down here. Oh, that looks like, is that a porthole? Yeah, I think there's a porthole there. Maybe that's what the guy was turning over so he could have a look at it. Yeah, it looks like quite a nice one. It appears to have the glass intact in it, which is relatively rare, especially something that was sunk by torpedoes. Obviously, that's a huge bang when you get torpedoed, and it would obviously smash a lot of glass and everything. I think I'm just moving it up a bit there. Oh, somebody's flashing away at me. Maybe just saying, nice porthole, or maybe leave it alone. Who knows? But that's what it is. Once again, you can see it's me kicking up the viz this time, and that's all these wrecks are covered in silt and stuff. So I don't know why I'm telling John it's a porthole. I'm sure he can see it's a porthole. It's probably just having a look at it. Anyway, I'm gonna head off, leave him to it, and once again you can just see all the silt and stuff that's been kicked up there. This is definitely on the seabed here. You can see it's flat and muddy. Oh, that looks like a ling. That's about one of the few fish that I'm capable of recognising. They're very distinctive. So yeah, just once again, I think this is still the area where the binoculars were found, and also there is a bit of the binnacle around here. So maybe that's what I'm looking for. Binnacle is ship's compass, so just keeping an eye out for that. It's nice to see these kind of things. But also I'm looking. Oh, looks as though I've seen something there. I'm kind of burning it out with my torch. It looks like that might be a bit of a bottle or a jar or something. Yeah, I know you can see there it's a broken bit of crockery. But where there's one bit of crockery, there's often more. So I'm keeping a good lookout, and maybe there'll be something there. Yeah, just coming up on the side of the wreck here. I'm not sure it makes great video, this, me just kind of slowly looking around, but you know, that's what we've got the time to do on these dives. Lots of the dives I do that are really deep, you'll see me just sort of motoring around. Oh, looks as though I found something in there, and you can see once again, as soon as I touch it, that evil black mud kicks up. There's definitely something in there. By the looks of things, it seems fairly big. I think I know what this is, but I remember getting it, and you can see it's gone completely pitch black, because clearly I'm doing this all by feel now. I've kicked up the viz. I'm wiggling something. I think this is a bit of crockery I'm about to get out, but it is proving quite painful. I'm not sure I'm going to ruin the surprise for you, but what I am going to do is there's a minute or two of black video, which is really not very interesting for anybody. So I'm going to fast forward the video, and here it is. After a minute or two of wiggling, I've pulled out what looks like a very large serving dish, and hopefully I'm going to show it to the camera so you can actually see it. It's quite nice. It's completely intact. Been buried in the mud for 80 odd years. The really disappointing thing about it is that it turns out not to have any markings on it. And although I do bring it up, I put it in a bag and bring it up to the surface. I think I ended up giving it to one of the other divers on the dive. I just didn't want it, really. There it is. You can see it's kind of come out. Incredible, you think about it. Survived all those years underwater, survived the sinking of the ship, survived being pulled out of the mud by me, and survived the journey to the surface. And yeah, it's one of the other divers has got it. They'll have declared it, and it will be, you know, presumably on a shelf somewhere in their house. But yeah, it's not a bad little find. John loves his crockery and his bottles and stuff. Sorry, John, JP, same person. He's obviously found something as well. He's going to put it in his bag. In fact, I think I'm going to take my my plate over to him and ask him if he'll put that in there as well. His bag's much nicer than mine, and he's got whatever he's got there. He's putting it in it. So here we go, John. Can you stick that in there, mate? He's like, "Oh, you bugger. That's really nice." Yeah. He's going to put it in there, and he's going to take it up to the surface for me, which is really good of him. So yeah, but obviously getting that out has absolutely destroyed the visibility around here, and so you know, probably time to move off to find somewhere where there's a bit more to see. But interesting, you know, I think it just shows the only bit of that was sticking out was a very kind of top corner of it. The rest of it was buried in the mud. It just shows, I think, the importance of sometimes taking your time and getting your eye in and having a good look round, and you find things that may be missed on a first look. As I say, this wreck has been dived a lot. Oh, that looks like something else there as well. There's a bit of broken plate, so this might be another broken plate, or let's see what that is. I know, completely intact, another intact plate. So once again, nothing on it, no markings. Really disappointing. Boo hiss to the shipping company, which didn't give their people decent stuff. So I'm going to leave it there. And if anybody wants an unmarked plate off the Silver Laurel, they're more than welcome to get it. If you do like plates and crockery, you might want to check out some of my other videos. I've got one where I dive the Afrique and I find an absolutely stunning white star line plate, and those are. That's lovely. It's got pride of place up on the wall of my office. I kind of work from home, and it's decorated with various bits of diving, treasure that I've found over the years. My wife won't let it in. Won't let me have much of it in the house, so it all stays in my office. But you know, clearly I'm feeling good at this point. I've got my eye in. I found that big dish. I found the plate. Kind of feel there's got to be other things. something there is moving. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get it out. That bit of white porcelain in front of me, that looks like maybe a bowl or a yeah, I think it's probably part of a sink bowl. There's various other bits and pieces. There's some kind of straps or something there. You know, clearly there's a lot of stuff in and around this small area. Oh, I am wiggling something. And you can see what I've done here is I'm probably using both hands in front of me. I'm not really even looking because I'm just using my hands and doing everything by touch and feel. And once the visibility goes, or when you're trying to get things from underneath things, that's probably that's what you need to do. So I think whatever it is, I've probably given up on it. Can't have been that interesting. It might have been another porthole or something like that. And frankly, I just can't be bothered getting it out. So not least because it's not something that I'm going to want. So you know, here we go. You know, once again, up and around on the wreck. There's got to be something around. That looks like potentially something just up there. Is that another small porthole, perhaps? This is all on the port side of the wreck, where it's kind of collapsed down towards the seabed. In and around the bridge area, you know, you can see there's loads of nets and all sorts of things going on here. So the dive, when we found the bell, I actually found it when I was diving with JP, who's my buddy on this dive. I'm a rebreather instructor, and I'd just done his Mod 3 course with him, which is the 80 metre rebreather qualification. We'd done it in a place called Chepstow, doesn't exist anymore, the National Diving and Activity Centre, which is a kind of freshwater lake. So we'd done all his training in there, and then for his first deep sea dive, we came to the Silver Laurel, and the shot on that case was placed much further forward than it is on this dive. And we came down, and it was kind of we could have gone left to the bow, or we could have gone right to the bridge. And for whatever reason, I just decided to go left to the bow. It's quite nice. It's on its port side. It's kind of fallen on the side. It stands up quite nicely. So we decided to go to the bow. And as I kind of came over the bow, I saw something on the seabed, and I was like, "No, that cannot possibly be the bell." And I motioned JP over. So this is his first deep dive, and he looks at me and speaks through his rebreather mouthpiece, and I can hear him, you know, still today going, "Is that a bell?" And I was like, "Yes, that is the bell." So on his first Mod 3 dive, within about 10 minutes of hitting the bottom, JP had seen his first bell underwater, which was it's a special moment for any diver, but I don't think you've seen one since. There's a couple of portholes just off to the left-hand side there. There's one there, yeah, and there's another one above it. I think they're both in plate, but I'm probably going to give it a bit of a wiggle anyway. Almost can't help myself. So yeah, there's quite a lot left on the Silver Laurel, but JP and me found the bell within the first 10 minutes of landing on a wreck that had been dived hundreds of times before. So I was obviously very pleased, and that's a really happy memory. Just sometimes shows as well, I think, that going and revisiting dives has a lot of value. Ships change, things move around, things uncover, and you know sometimes you just see things a bit differently. All these things happen, and it does show the benefit of going back to stuff. We've done it with quite a few of the wrecks in our local area. They were kind of heavily dived in maybe 2000 to 2010. Then there wasn't so much technical diving happening out of Plymouth, maybe 2010 to 2020, and then since then there's been quite a resurgence, and that's led to all sorts of interesting discoveries. Several bells have come off local wrecks. Oh, that's quite interesting. Just in front of me, that's another just off to the left hand side where JP was. There's another engine cover there, and you can see there was a couple of intact portholes in it with the glass in and stuff. There's another diver. Looks as though another guy with an inspo and a G box. We're all in and around this area. I don't think the shot's a million miles away, so we're all certainly I am coming towards the end of our dive yet. There's another couple of portholes. You can see that there's a lot of stuff left on this wreck, although to get anybody who was minded to get those out would need to spend some serious time getting them out of the plate they're in. And frankly, I can't possibly think it's worth the effort. But if you want to get portholes, there's hundreds of wrecks where you can get them a lot easier than that. But yeah, this is just probably aft of the engine now. So towards, I guess, one of the rear holds. It is really getting towards the end of the dive, and I'm starting to think about heading up. There's JP. He's got his bag full of treasure, all those kind of bits and pieces, including the big serving dish that I found. He does like to collect little trinkets, does John, and he's got a load of them in there. So I use John and JP pretty interchangeably. It's the same person. He's known as JP. P is obviously his surname, and that's what he's got on the back of his unit and that sort of stuff. So there he is. Getting to the end of the dive now. But in the comments on one of my other videos, somebody asked me about the gas that we're breathing. So, I mean, these are closed circuit rebreathers, so very different to scuba. So no gas gets lost really from the system, which means that we can breathe quite strong helium mixes. So on this one, I think the breathing mix has got about 50% helium in it. And what that does, obviously, is just removes any nitrogen narcosis from the equation. So it's pretty much the same as in terms of narcotic effect. It's similar to breathing air, probably about 15 or 20 meters. So it means you've got a super clear head, which is why it's far safer, and also rather than breathing scuba where all the gas leaves the system and goes up to the surface, using a rebreather is far more economical. Helium is a really expensive gas, so you want to be using as little of it as you possibly can. So yeah, that's a breathing gas. That's what we're using. And then if I was to go deeper than this, I would obviously increase the amount of helium in the diluent. And the way closed circuit rebreathers work is they mix oxygen in to whatever other gas is in them in order to give you normally 1.3 bar partial pressure oxygen at whatever depth you're at. So the percentage of oxygen is always constant. It's the other gases that change. And you've seen that I'm diving an electronic closed circuit rebreather. So the handset that I've got on my left wrist is it's basically sorting that all out. It's also calculating my decompression obligation continuously as well. So I mean, they're unbelievable bits of technology, and we're incredibly fortunate to have them. As you know, without them, this kind of diving would probably be prohibitively expensive. If you were to do this dive using normal scuba gear, open circuit equipment, then you would be into hundreds of pounds for the gas bill. So there we go. I'm back at the shot line now. Dive's pretty much over. You've seen the strobe flashing. So one last look at the wreck, and then it's going to be time to head up. There's JP. I think I'm probably just going to say to him, it's time to go up. In fact, there's the engine cover. You may remember we saw that right at the beginning of the dive. There's a shot line. It's no longer lying completely flat on the seabed, so the current will have picked up a little bit. But I mean, it's still incredibly still, incredibly calm. And there's all the strobes on the line, so you can see how many divers there are on the wreck by how many strobes or pairs of strobes there are. So there's mine. You see my other videos, you know I like having two strobes. It's a bit of redundancy. I'm going to get them off there, attach them back up to my gear, and then heading up. But there you go. So there's at least you can count the strobes as we go past them. 1, 2, 3. Some of these 4 maybe. So there's at least 4 other divers on the wreck. I may have miscounted them there. There might be more than that. But here we come. We're ascending up, end of the dive, and obviously as we come back up, it's all going to get a bit lighter again. As we get away from the bottom, closer to surface, the water conditions become a bit more pleasant. There's JP following up behind me, and so that's kind of coming to the end of another dive. As you've seen from the beginning, from my deco profile, I've got another sort of 2 hours in the water to do maybe of decompression, and that will be done progressively, getting shallower and shallower. I'm not going to subject you to that. This video's already been pretty long, but it's what we do for the majority of the dive. So you can probably see above me there's a couple of divers. Even though we're in first, some other divers have decided they didn't want to do quite as long as on the bottom as we did, so they'll be out of the water much quicker, and therefore they'll be up the line ahead of us. So there's JP still following me up, which is all good. I've secured the strobes onto my dive gear, and it's just a case really of getting up. And you can see as I'm coming up, I'm venting gas from my rebreather loop. The gas in the loop is always at ambient pressure, so if you are, say, diving at 70 meters, then the ambient pressure down there is 8 bar. So the gas in the loop's 8 bar. That means as you ascend, the gas will expand, and you need to get it out of the loop, otherwise it's really uncomfortable. You end up with what they call hamster cheeks. So yeah, you just vent the gas. It also makes you really buoyant, so you get rid of that. The other thing I'm doing, you can't really see it, is I'm changing the partial pressure in the rebreather loop. So it would have been 1.3 at the bottom, and I'm changing it to 1.5. Doing that helps accelerate decompression, so it gets you out of the water a little bit quickly. I've got to change 2 devices. I've got to change the rebreather handset, which is on my left hand, and then I've got to change the spare computer, or the redundant computer, on my right hand side, which is standalone. Okay, and you see I'm just coming up to some divers. These are some of the guys I mentioned who got up a bit before me. Looks like Andy on the left. He's got those kind of fins. He's a guy diving the Liberty. I'm not sure who the other diver on the right is, but we're all kind of bunched up here. This is where the lazy shot meets the main shot line. I think by the looks of things they're doing some deco stops, but we're going to need to get our tags off the line. There they go. They've cleared out the way. Andy's left a bag on the end of the lazy shot. That'll probably have a lobster in it or something like that, and then it will get recovered up onto the boat. So everyone's getting their tags. JP's going to get his. I'm going to get mine. And the last pair of divers, once they'll come up, see there's no tags or just their tags. They'll take their tags, and then they'll release the lazy shot from the line. Someone also appears to have left some sort of wet notes there for some reason. No idea why that is. I think I'm probably going to go and have a quick look and see what it says on there. See if there's anything interesting. No, nothing really obvious. Someone's left it there for some reason, so probably best just to leave it there. These are all the tags on the lazy shot. You can see various different people. Mine's the yellow one, so I'm going to take that off, clip it onto my dive gear. But you can see there's probably about 5 or 6 divers left down. I'm going to have a quick look and see what's in Andy's bag. I don't know what it is. Something that he's found on the bottom anyway. So that'll be coming up onto the boat later on. And then I'm going to carry on now with the rest of my deco. You can see that the current's picked up a bit. There's a bit of tension on the line. That's pretty standard. And then what we're going to do now is people will either kind of float next to the line, or maybe just gently hold on to the line, and you spend a lot of time looking down the line, waiting for the other divers, and we're waiting for the other divers, and then they're going to pull the lazy shot, and then we'll start to drift, and the current becomes less of an issue there. There's JP, obviously, just making sure that we're all okay. He's studying his handset there, and that's it. Looking down the line, you can see that black bag that was on the end of the lazy shot, and we're just going to sit here staring down the line, waiting for the next load of divers to come up. That's about as much much interest as there is, and we've now got several hours of doing this at different depths on the line. So there's a bit of a cut here. I've taken out a chunk, but there you go. You can see the next load of divers coming up the line. You can see the bubbles coming off their gear as they're obviously venting the loop, like I've just talked about. They're going to be taking their tags, and then they'll be going to whatever depth they need to do their deco. And this process is repeated by everyone on the dive. And as I've mentioned, the last pair will eventually pull the lazy shot. The line will go vertical again, and we'll float off. So, bit of a time jump coming up. I don't tend to keep deco videos, so here's a time jump. We're back on the surface. You've just seen that I've turned my camera on, and the reason I've done that is obviously to film the boat coming up to pick us up. You can see the wind has picked up a bit, so it's a bit lumpier than when we went down, but there's a lovely blue sky. Danny on red alert there. He spotted us in the water, and he's going to come and pick us up. What normally happens is we each individually clear our decompression, and you find out how much time the other people have got left, and then you come up to the surface and you're going to relay that information. In some ways it's easier just to have one diver at a time coming up for the skipper. There's obviously a bit of stuff needs to be done in terms of getting gear off people and everything, so it's easier to do if there's just one person. There's Andy in the blue dry suit on the boat, so obviously he got out of the water before me. Well, that's me coming to the end of another one of my videos. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't, please tell me why you haven't. Leave us a comment. Tell us how I could improve it. Do better next time. Otherwise, well, thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers now.